If you're using a lead acid battery, and that would be a wet cell, 12 volt, 6 volt, which is lead and acid. If you're using an AGM, which is an absorption glass mat battery, deep cycle or not deep cycle, even a gel cell, you really should watch this video to the end, because the #1 failure cause for lead acid batteries, which is all those that I described, is sulfation. And sulfation, I've done a lot of research. It seems to be a mystical process, but I'll try and explain it as best I can. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I've learned a lot. So in the chemistry process, when you use a battery, you have sulfuric acid, water, and lead. And the glass mat is a slightly different composition, but it's basically the same thing. When the battery is in use, the acid and lead reaction creates electricity. But it does something else. It creates sulfation. All those batteries, 100% of them get sulfation. Lithium ions do not. So the sulfation causes this sulfurous compound to collect on the lead plates of the battery. And when that happens, you get incomplete surface exposure of the acid to the battery, and that reduces efficiency. So in order to, you need to get rid of that sulfurous coating. And fortunately, it's just part of the process of batteries. It's a reversible process. So one way to do it is, this trailer came with a battery charger that allows you to remove. They claim that this, you set it for a repair mode, and it pulse charges the battery at around 14 or 15 volts, and that supposedly burns off the sulfation and returns that compound back into the acid. So this is the battery charger that came with my trailer. It's a G7200. A G7200 Genius battery charger made by NOCO. Now, Genius, hey, pretty bold name there, but maybe it's appropriate in this case. This battery can charge it can charge lead acid wet cells, AGM, AGM plus, and it can charge lithium ion and gel cells. So this battery charger has a repair mode, which is a desulfation mode. You can set this to desulfate the battery, and I've done it. It takes about 4 hours, and anybody who owns a lead acid, gel cell, AGM, deep cycle, automobile battery, take your pick, they all get sulfation, and to varying degrees, and you may be able to prevent battery failure by just desulfating your battery. It's a reversible process, and this happens all the time. So all you have to do is desulfate your battery. Now, I've read a number of different ways to do this. There's a lot of folklore, there's a lot of tribal knowledge, a lot of things that, you know, are really not what I would call precise data, but everybody agrees sulfation occurs, and everybody agrees you have to get rid of it. So some of the causes of sulfation are incomplete battery charging. So what's incomplete battery charging? It could be just using your car for short hops to the supermarket and maybe not letting it charge completely. I've read my battery specs. They claim you need to charge it for 18 hours. It could be camping out, like me, and driving the trailer to the next location. I was up boondocking 2 weeks ago, and it could be that, right? You drive, you use the battery all night, you run it down a bit, you plug it into your car, you drive to the next location, it's charging. Maybe the next location is an hour away. Not quite enough for a full, complete charge. The battery will work, it'll get you through the night, but it's an incomplete charge, and maybe you're contributing to sulfation. Battery storage could contribute to sulfation. Solar panels on a cloudy day, maybe it's partially charged. A couple of days, you get a week of bad sun. You're charged enough to work with, but you're incomplete. So there's several causes. I don't know what incomplete charging is. I couldn't find a strict definition of it, but it happens. It happens even under normal usage, you get sulfation. One big contributor is draining your battery and not recharging it. Let it sit in an undrained state for a period of time. I don't know what that period of time is, but I've read this over and over, that that's a contributor to sulfation. So, on my battery charger, all you do is charge the battery, then hit the repair button, and 4 hours later, it's desulfated. I've read other methods, such as putting a heavy load on the battery will cause it to burn off the crystals that form on the lead, the sulfur crystals that form on the lead, that will help reverse sulfation. I've read zapping it with a lot of electricity will reverse it, but I'm just using the Genius method right now, and it does seem to help. My battery did not seem to be charging up like it used to, and after desulfating it, I did it twice in a row, it seems to be behaving a little better. You know, maybe this is psychological, I don't know, but if you have a battery and it's not performing well, I would say it's certainly worth a try to desulfate it before you go out and spend another $250 for a good battery. That's a deep cell, deep discharge RV battery. That's a car battery. Any lead acid based battery could benefit from desulfation. Surprisingly, some literature I read said that you should desulfate a brand new battery, because after manufacture it may have been sitting for quite a while and in an inactive state, and it may have sulfation from that. So it doesn't seem like there's much of a downside to desulfating, but seems like a lot of upside. If you have a car battery or a RV battery that's only lasting like 2 years, I think that may be a candidate for desulfating. Some guidelines, and there are not many, that I've read are you should desulfate it every 6 months, maybe more in some cases, maybe less in others. So, you know, if you start monitoring your battery voltage on a regular basis and keep some records, I think you'll be able to see when you need it. So to sum this up, if you're thinking of throwing away your battery, try desulfating it. Also, if you're happy with your battery, desulfate it every so often. I don't know how often, I don't know what you're doing with it. So, you know, every 6 months, 3 months, depending what you're doing. If it's not working well, try desulfating it. Don't take your battery below, I'm going to say 10.5 volts. That's the lowest you ever want to go. And if you're going down to that voltage at a regular basis, your battery may not last as long. You may only get 500 recharges out of it, as opposed to maybe recharging your battery at 11.5 volts. If you only take your battery down to 11.5 volts, you may get 1,000 recharges out of it, maybe more. You can find these statistics on the documentation that's available for your battery. I suggest you look for that. It's pretty good stuff. So that's my my input on batteries. So this weekend I finally had an opportunity to test how long the refrigerator will actually run off the battery. I never did it before because I was always out camping in places where I did not have electricity, and I wanted to not run out of electricity. So I always top off the battery with the solar panels as soon as possible. But in this case, I have AC electricity. I'm at a campground, and I started testing. When I arrived here, I unplugged the trailer from any source of electricity. It was fully charged from driving the car here, and I had charged it 24 hours in advance of the trip before I left. So my assumption is the trailer was, the battery was fully charged. It's a 115 amp hour Full River battery. Full River is the name of the company that makes it. It's a Group 32 battery, Group 31? Group 31 battery. The group number is associated with batteries is the size, the physical size of the battery. And this trailer has a compartment that can fit a Group 31 battery. And surprisingly, when I looked up Group 31 batteries, just about all of them had the same capacity as the battery in this trailer. It's an AGM battery, 115 amp hour. There was one company that made one that's 135 amp hour, but the difference is not very large. And it costs, you know, this battery's probably $250. That battery costs $350. Also, I looked at lithium-ion batteries, and they didn't offer much of an advantage either. Group 31 lithium-ion battery was a 100 amp hour. You can draw more energy out of it, but it ends up being about the same, and they cost about $1,000 each. So there are pluses and cons to all those things. The deal breaker on the lithium-ion battery, it said it couldn't recharge it below 25 degrees. That's ridiculous. It had some kind of a shutoff. So I wasn't planning on getting it anyway. I'm not going to spend $1,000 on a battery. But back to battery life. This refrigerator, all I used was the refrigerator and interior lighting, which is LED on the trailer when I did this test. And the refrigerator ran for between 32 and 36 hours. At that point, the automatic refrigerator shutoff turned off the refrigerator. This refrigerator has some, you can set an automatic shutoff for it, where when the battery voltage reaches 11.8 or 11.4 or 10.1, on any three of those settings you can have the 36 hours. At that point, the automatic refrigerator shutoff turned off the refrigerator. This refrigerator has some, you can set an automatic shutoff for it, where when the battery voltage reaches 11.8 or 11.4 or 10.1, on any three of those settings you can have the refrigerator shut off, and when you do that it will turn on at these other settings. If you set it for 10.1, it will turn on when the battery reaches 11.1. If you set it to shut off at 11.4, the refrigerator, when the battery reaches that voltage, it will turn back on when the battery voltage reaches 12.2. And if you set it to shut off at 11.8, the refrigerator will restart when the battery voltage reaches 12.6. These settings are so you don't kill your battery. You don't want to take your battery down to 10 volts or 10.5 volts. Not a good idea. It will shorten the life and maybe ruin the battery. Okay, so the refrigerator ran for between 32 and 36 hours before it got down to the 11.4 volt setting, and then it turned off. So that's a question I've been trying to answer for a while. I had no opportunity to do it because I'm always out in the wilderness. So there you go. Had I been charging various devices and all, maybe I would have only gotten 24 hours out of it. But hey, that's a bit of good, it's a bit of information for me to use going forward. What typically happens is I'll be out somewhere using a lot of energy and recharging with solar panels, and I get some bad weather. It'll partially recharge the battery enough for me to get by. I have not run out of energy yet, so just a little bit more information for you to use. Once I realized that the trailer had run, that the battery had the refrigerator had shut off, of course I plugged it into the campground power supply, AC outlet, and I am recharging. So there you go. I'm recharging the trailer battery, which, as you can see, it's up to 13.56. Again, I know this battery is not fully charged because it is still slowly rising in voltage. The sign for me that it's fully charged is when this charger starts pulse charging it, and then it turns on and off pretty quickly. That's while it's trying to squeeze in the last bit of energy into this battery. So I'm not there yet, but it's doing pretty good. It's 3:30 p.m. I plugged this battery charger in at 9 a.m. and the battery charger, this battery is mostly charged, and what it's doing now is it's pulse charging to get the last bits of energy into this battery. The voltage will drop, the battery charger will turn on and pulse charge this. This is going to go on for quite a while, but I would say that this battery, I'm just guessing, is probably at about 95%, 97% charged. And to get that last bit of energy in there, this will continue to pulse charge it. And it varies quite a bit. It'll take it up to like 14.5 volts eventually. But it's mostly there. So I would think that this might qualify as fully charged, maybe not. But I'm just giving you these numbers for your own use. The family member has come in third for 17 and 18-year-old track cycling. So he got the bronze medal for that age group. Go on, Peter, get it.
Go, Peter!
There he goes. Get it, Peter, go to it. Yeah! Woo!
Yeah. Yeah. Animal, huh?
Look at these guys fly. Peter! Yeah! And you are again?
John Hoopengartner.
Great. Thank you so much, John.
Albert dropping down, rising back up, dropping down, rising back up. Slaughter on the front, looking over the left shoulder. We're picking up the pace a little bit here as we're entering into the home stretch of the first lap. Getting the bell, dropping down, it's Ed Slaughter. Into the sprinter's lane, Slaughter out of the saddle, still rounding through turn 1, sits down now as he enters turn 2. Albert on response mode. Slaughter, another dag out of the saddle. Albert all overing and covering the move, and they are close neck and neck as they're hitting the 100-meter line. Slaughter leading the charge as they're coming out of turn 4. Albert fighting, but he's not going to get it done. Slaughter with the win.
19 across the line. That's Henry for Basco. Nothing as our rival calculator came forward, does pass the one.
Sisters are there too.
You guys think it was 7 legs?
No, that's our team's name is 5. So.
Is it actually?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome.
I want to get a photo.
Hand up.
One second. Raise it a little bit. Yeah.
And flex boys, you gotta flex as well.
Josh,
Go, you're on foot.
guys, I need to break that. That's just switch on that side. Put him. I just need a little bit. Or I can go down and get a line. Oh, there's an actual I don't like you to just lay down. Yeah. I may. When you're track failing, right? Let's go!
3:35 with 3 laps to go. Clock at 110K there in the third. Okay. They still have all 4 riders here as well, so 3 laps there to ramp it up and ramp it up. You try your hand in the front, going a little bit harder. Each and every turn. There you now, 1 rider pulling off. There's 2 laps to go.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go! Go, 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 go! Go, guys!
They came in at 4:19 for their time without the last lap calculated in there. 4:30 on the backstretch.